A new rumor has surfaced alleging two potential scripts for Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy's Star Wars film featuring Daisy Ridley that will focus on Rey rebuilding or building her own new Jedi Order. Before we get into this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. With that out of the way, let's get into this here. Before we get into those specific rumors, let's go back and look at what we actually know about this film. It was announced at Star Wars Celebration back in April 2023 that Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy would direct a film focusing on the new Jedi Order, and it would see Daisy Ridley return to the franchise to reprise her role. A press release detailed at the time that the movie is, quote, set 15 years after the last events of the Skywalker saga, obviously Rise of the Skywalker, that film. Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy will tell the story of rebuilding the new Jedi Order and the powers that rise to tear it down. The director then delighted fans by welcoming Daisy Ridley to stage, confirming that she will be reprising her beloved role as Rey in the upcoming movie. Lucasfilm President Kathleen Kennedy then provided more details to Entertainment Weekly's Dagobah Dispatch. She said, "We've been talking a lot about going well into the past, and one of the things that's really knitting this all together, obviously, are the Jedi. What happened with the Jedi over time, much like history? How did the Jedi evolve? They were wiped out with Order 66, then they gradually have been coming back. The question that we're going to ask with New Jedi Order and with Rey is, does the galaxy need them anymore? Do they want them back?" So there's a lot of food for thought in what we're doing, whether it's in the past, present, or future. She would also relay to a game's radar. "I think what's always great about Star Wars is it's a big galaxy, and we're coming off what was a major war with the First Order. And now Rey has made a promise to Luke, and that's really the core of where we're going and what the story will be. And I think it offers just tremendous opportunity to introduce new characters and start with something fresh because we culminated with what George Lucas was creating. And now we take all of that and move it to the next chapter." These themes are supposed to tie into the announced James Mangold film as well. For that, if you aren't familiar with that film, that's supposed to be the origin of the Force film. He described it as the Ten Commandments film. Kennedy explained, "It was something that Jim Mangold immediately sparked to, and I think it's a really nice compliment to what we're doing with moving into the future with Rey, and then understanding a bit more of where this will all come from, because it will be at the heart of creating the new Jedi Order. So to get a real sense of where that might have began with the dawn of the Jedi could be pretty cool." We did get a leak synopsis from issue 1335 of Production Weekly, which said, "Set roughly 15 years after Rey's victory over Palpatine at the end of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, the sequel delves into Rey's courageous endeavor to restore the Jedi Order, where she assumes the role of a mentor to two promising young students, a girl and a boy. As her training progresses, it becomes evident that the girl possesses extraordinary abilities destined to emerge as the future leader." So that is what we knew before this latest rumor. And this latest rumor comes from Scooper WDW Pro. And he alleges there are two iterations of the Rey script that I'm aware of that I can talk about according to rumor. And those iterations of the script that I've been told existed. So let's get into what they are. He goes on and says, "There are two iterations of the Rey script that I'm aware of that I can talk about according to rumor. And those are apparently early on in development. The idea was that Rey would be pregnant with a child, and that off screen she would have become pregnant somehow through the Force ghost of Kylo Ren in a way that would have been explained but not presented on screen. They could not have Rey be pregnant with any other person than Kylo Ren, and that was to placate the Reylo fans out there. And then the story was going to push forward to when her child was about 9 years old, a daughter, and that daughter was going to be training in the new Jedi Temple with Rey and with the other Padawans. That this 9-year-old daughter was going to combine the light and the dark and form a new type of Jedi. And then they were going to face off against, is it Darth Plagueis? Well, apparently he was going to be back. And so that was the first iteration of the script. So that sounds absolutely terrible. This whole idea of combining the light and the dark is utterly ridiculous. The whole point of the original trilogy was removing the dark side from the light. The dark is a corruption of the light. When the force is in balance is when the dark side is been removed. And you do that through self-discipline, through conquering yourself, your inner self. And that's why we see Luke literally throw down his lightsaber, refuse to fight against Darth Sidious, and he's willing to die for what he believes in instead of continuing to fight and potentially fall into the dark side and let himself be corrupted through that battle. It's very clear if you watch the original trilogy and listen to what George Lucas had to say about the Force and what it actually means to be in balance. It is not this idea that it's on a scale and the dark side has to be here and the light side has to be here. This kind of yin yang thing that Dave Filoni and his acolytes have inserted into the Star Wars universe. That is not what balance in the Force means. So this idea on its head, on its face, is just utterly ridiculous. It's repugnant. It is antithetical to Star Wars and to the Jedi. The idea that Kylo Ren is impregnating Rey as a Force ghost is just bizarre and weird and creepy as well. Just who even knows what they were thinking here? Fortunately, it does seem like there are maybe some people that have their heads screwed on right over there at Lucasfilm. I'm not sure how many, but maybe there's a couple, because Pro does say that was discarded. They did not feel that they would quell the complaints about Rey being a Palpatine, and they didn't want to fool with that. There were also concerns that Daisy Ridley's character was a side character and that her daughter would be the lead, and that was going to be an issue. The script didn't really have a lot of oversight from Disney executives beyond Lucasfilm. I do want to go back and point out this too. Like, they're bringing back Plagueis. They were going to bring back Plagueis. Like, did they not realize how stupid it was to bring back Sidious and Palpatine in the sequel trilogy? So going back even further to Plagueis, who Palpatine literally tells us he killed him, is just utterly ridiculous. I guess you could say, oh, he actually did conquer death, but like, no, that is again not the point. Like, the Sith cannot actually conquer death because they're so consumed with their immortality. It's very similar to Tolkien and the Numenorians. They're obsessed with immortality, and they eventually get they can't actually achieve it, whereas like the Jedi can, because they become one with the Force. And again, goes back to the idea that balance is removing the dark side, and you obviously achieve immortality through becoming one with the Force as a Jedi, and you cannot do that through the dark side and as a Sith. So here's the second one. I think this one is just as bad as well. It says that one where Disney became involved, that involved Rey and Finn fighting against a new villain who was a combination of a Night Sister and a Sith. So a Sith who had learned to take on the powers of the Night Sisters and combine the Force with the magic of the witches, and that Rey and Finn would be combined together to take on that foe. I guess they're trying to tell us that this is some kind of super powerful dark side user. We've already seen characters like this in the Star Wars: The Clone Wars show. You obviously have characters like Darth Maul. You have his brother, Savage Opress, and then you have her name escapes me right now, the Night Sister who trains under Dooku. Is kind of a rival to Ahsoka. I'm just blanking on her name right now. I can see her with the twin red lightsabers. So you have characters like that already who were Night Sisters and Sith, and obviously characters that have been empowered by the Night Sisters that were training under Sith. So this just seems doesn't really make any sense that there's be some kind of new power. Maybe it goes to those rumors that they were going to like introduce some kind of new way of looking at the Force in the Ahsoka show that really didn't come to fruition, at least in the first season. We'll see if it happens in the second season. Progan then continues, said, I'm also told that Grogu would make a cameo in both of these, but that Grogu had been scaled back dramatically due to needing to save him for the Mandalorian movie, and because of the change in production and releases related to the strikes that were going on. That was a previous rumor that he scooped when he scooped that the Rey movie would indeed be happening before Star Wars Celebration, indicating that Grogu would show up in it. And I think that was kind of at the time when the people at Disney and Lucasfilm still thought Grogu was one of their big cash cows in Star Wars. I think Mandalorian Season 3 has put that assumption to bed. He went on to say this. Now, where this became problematic is that apparently the executives took a look at this and they felt that this was too Marvel. And that's the quote that I've got here, too Marvel. And the reason is it felt like it was a side quest adventure. It did not feel like this was a bigger thing than what had happened in the prior three movies. And so it came off, without the wind in the sails. That's, I guess, what I was just saying there, right? We've already seen characters like this. We've seen Savage Opress. We've seen Darth Maul. We've seen these Night Sister Sith type characters, and yeah, they are. It feels like a television show, and that's because it was on Star Wars: The Clone Wars. It does feel like a side quest rather than kind of something that has like galactic uh, consequences. Instead, this is just kind of like a more intimate fight with Rey and Finn rather than the galactic consequences, palace intrigue that we expect kind of from Star Wars. He went on to say, the issue there, I'm told, is that there's frustration on the side of Lucasfilm. Usually I don't defend Lucasfilm. On this case, I will. They can't figure out a way to make a story bigger than what happened at the end of Rise of Palpatine with, all that happened on that planet with the ships rising out of the ground there. They don't know how to make something bigger than that. Frankly, I hope they don't. But that's where the Disney execs came in. They looked at the script. I'm told they were not pleased. They did not like whatever this was. And I don't know any further granularity to what was in the script. So those are the two rumors. As far as them not being able to make something bigger, I think that they can. I'm going to disagree with Pro on this. I think that's kind of where you need to go. I think you have that template in Heir of the Empire if you actually follow the Timothy Zahn novels with Grand Admiral Thrawn. I think there's some other things that you could come up with as well. You could obviously bring in a new galactic threat that is rising in some other unknown or explored parts of the galaxy that they bring in. You could introduce more of the Chiss Empire as well. There's lots of things that you could do that could create rivalries and become like a galactic threat. And you could also introduce more complexities as well if you want to, where you have all kinds of different factions. I think that is something that could be really interesting. And I think it's something that they absolutely failed to do in the book of Boba Fett and The Mandalorian, even though that is ripe there. Obviously, you have the crime syndicates that could be getting involved. You have, obviously, the Imperial remnants. You have the warlords vying for power, which I guess they did a little bit of that in the third season of The Mandalorian, but it should have been a lot more. There should have been a way more palace intrigue happening. And then, obviously, you should have had different political factions in the New Republic vying for power, competing for each other on to how things would go about it and things like that. And that could have been really interesting. And then obviously Luke rebuilding the Jedi Order, bringing his influence and things like that. So there could have been lots of these different factions warring with each other, then having this kind of outside force coming in as well, maybe uniting people and things like that. So you're working with different people. I mean, there's lots of things that they could have done and they can do that they just absolutely failed to do because these people have no understanding of Star Wars. They have no understanding of storytelling. And we see this over and over and over again, just disasters of storytelling, whether it's on the movie front with the sequel trilogy, Solo, etc., or if it's on the television front with The Mandalorian, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ahsoka, and what's coming up with The Acolytes. And I guess there's like some kids in space movie too, or television show that I can't even remember its name. But those are the two rumors. I think they're absolutely terrible. I think it's a good thing that they scrapped the first one, if indeed that is true. I think they should scrap this one too. Maybe they should just let it go for a couple more years. I mean, 2019. We've been waiting 5 years already. Maybe we wait another 5 years. I really think they need to get some different leadership involved. Clean house at Lucasfilm, and I do think that is possible. I know a lot of people don't think that if you get new leadership, you can change things. I think that is definitely possible. You see what bad leadership does, right? You see what bad leadership with at Lucasfilm with Kathleen Kennedy and how she's created all of these absolutely garbage products. And obviously that also stems from Bob Iger. So you have to change the whole structure at the Walt Disney Company in order to get that fixed. But I do think that is possible, and I think it can happen very quickly if you get the right person involved. So I do think that there is a possibility to actually fix this stuff, but I just don't see it ever being changed with the current leadership right now. But those are my thoughts on the matter. Let me know what you guys think about this. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, but to always speak the truth.